Welcome to Deep Dive. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict, and I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm reporting all week long here from Dallas, Texas at Evolve 19, which is ASG Technologies annual user conference. And I have before me here my guest, Rob Perry. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Rob is the Vice President of Product Marketing, so this must be a big week for you in product marketing.
It's a really big week. We've been working towards this for a long time. So my team is responsible for a tremendous amount of the content that goes into the presentations, building the tracks, working with the customer speakers, making sure their presentations are good and compelling and tell their story as they want to tell it. And in some ways, this is the culmination of that, and it's almost a relief being here. And it's actually, and then there's great gratitude in actually seeing it and seeing the excitement, and then the best thing about it is that it's over afterwards. So
So in all that preparation, what are you most excited to share here at the event?
Well, we've introduced a new product we call ASG Zenith, a digital automation platform, and it's a really exciting step forward in how our customers and hopefully new customers will be developing applications for driving digital transformation, their digitization efforts to evolve their overall business into the information economy. There was a McKinsey study that showed that like 92% of industry leaders did not believe their current business model would survive this stage of disruption, and I kind of think the other 8% are just deluding themselves, right?
Yes.
They will have to evolve and change anyway.
That is fascinating. I've read those statistics before, but boy, what a mountain to climb for so many companies, isn't it?
The whole modernization and digital transformation.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's not like it's new. It's been going on as long as there's been digital technologies, right? But we're in really a stage with big data and the massive collection of data. And the tools and mobility and just the ubiquity of devices and connectivity that is really kind of that next real stage going forward.
Absolutely. So the Deep Dive online TV channel, which we're recording for today, is for leaders and about leaders. So I want to get to know you as a leader. So why don't you give us your background?
Okay, sure. I've been in software marketing and product management for a long time.
Yeah.
I've worked for big companies. I worked for growing companies. My first real software job was with Lotus Development, which, if you remember, Lotus 123. I was the product manager for Lotus 123, and so I managed the largest, the biggest selling PC software application at the time. But it was a long time ago.
Yes.
But I've worked in some startups. I worked for Microsoft briefly. It was an interesting experience. It's really quite a company to work for. And found my way to ASG through some other companies I worked for, where I met some great people, Charles Sansbury, Swami, who runs our product team. And when I was thinking, well, I needed to do something different, I called them up and they said, we got this great thing going with ASG, why don't you come join us?
That's terrific. So where's home for you now?
I actually live in Vermont.
Okay.
I live in central Vermont. I lived around Boston for a long time, but a couple of years ago I thought I work remotely, so why don't I work remotely from the mountains?
Oh,
I live 3 minutes from a ski lift, so I spend, I shouldn't say it, but I have slipped out at lunch to do a few runs if the snow's good. But then because it's the mountains, I do a lot of hiking, biking, canoeing, so yeah.
That's awesome. I do the same thing, just on the other side of the United States in Idaho.
Okay,
and
yeah.
Charles also is in the mountains there. And
Charles and I have done some skiing together. He's a big skier, yep.
Oh, that's great. So ASG Technologies has been through a lot of changes over the last 4 years. And I was just thinking through all those changes, and that must have been a real challenge for marketing, because you're moving products around, you're rebranding products, you're announcing new categories. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, it is very interesting because it's a few challenges we have. So one, we have such a wide span of technologies. We've got, this 30-year history. We've got mainframe tools that are very traditional, managing systems and optimizing the performance of kind of the IT infrastructure within a company. And then we've got these very modern things like ASG Zenith, low-code, no-code design tool. And so we're constantly balancing those two sides to it. making sure we have the right language and kind of message for both of those areas. And then as we've changed, we've gone from a very, we've seen our look change a lot, right?
Yeah.
From kind of a old line 30-year-old company to a much more modern look on our website, a much more modern look in our collateral. We're trying to speak more in kind of current language,
Yeah.
make things far more graphical and accessible, and but also play off our 30 years, because the experience isn't always a bad thing, right? I mean, you don't have to be the newest shiny object. It's good to be able to combine that we've been at this for a long time as a company, and we have a lot of experience, but we bring that experience into this new vision and new direction forward. So trying to balance all that, and that's a challenge.
Fascinating. So with all this kind of new content that's going to be required for all the branding and new categories and all that, I'm always wondering, how does a vice president of product management, a manager, or marketing, I should say, manage all the different content for all the different products to make sure they have the right version in the right place? And are they using current stuff? Is that the current language and all that? How do you even do that on a tactical level?
Well, it's a good question. So I have a small team. We're an efficient organization. We spend a lot of time, obviously, looking at what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
We certainly look at our competitors. How are
Yeah.
they writing? What are they writing about? Because I always think they have a vision for what's important, right? Maybe we don't always agree. We want to differentiate. We're going a different way, but they certainly have a reason why they write the way they do and the things they say. We read analyst reports, right? And one thing that I'm responsible for is analyst relations. So we talk to the analysts. We understand what they're seeing in the market. They talk to a lot of, obviously other vendors, but also a lot of customers who call them to say, I need some advice about, this type of challenge I'm having. So they have that awareness, and they're generally looking ahead. They're always trying to think of what is happening and how do you structure to explain it easily. So they're a good resource for how the market's evolving, and also for language that seems to be resonating. So we try to understand how they write about things, how they talk about things, and then see how we can get that message and story and use that to influence how we write.
So Rob, Vice President of Product Marketing, you've been with a lot of companies, you have a great deal of experience. How have you seen kind of the evolution of product marketing? How has that changed over the last 10 years?
Well, again, the evolution has been going on for a long time, but you'll hear this a lot about the change in the selling cycle or the buyer's journey. That it used to be that most of the information in the sales cycle came from the selling companies, right? And now it's like when you go to buy a car. I mean, you know everything about the car, you know how much the dealer paid for it, you know how much other people paid for it, so that's the same in software really. When you're engaging with a buyer, they've done the research online, they've read reviews, they've evaluated the competition, they've talked to analysts, they know a lot more than they ever used to. So you have to think about it differently and think about what content you want to give them at what stage of their journey as they go from kind of the trolling and the casting the wide net to see what's out there, to trying to get down to making that decision and then selling that decision internally. And
so with your experience, how have you seen, when everything kind of moved from on-premise to hybrid to cloud-based solutions, and with subscription economy, growing and most people are subscribing to their solutions and things like that, how does that change the role of marketing?
Well, it changes a lot. So you have to make that, first you have to compress everything, right? It has to be faster. You have to get your story and your message across faster. You want to get the decision made faster because you can then get the customer up and running faster, right? There's a flip of a switch. And actually it was like 20 some years ago, I introduced a software as a service product, which was way before its time. And that was the challenge there. We were also selling into HR, which is not the most, no offense to to HR people, but they're not the earliest adopters of technology usually. So, in that case, it was hard to explain how software was going to meet their needs from, the internet. Basically, at the time, nobody used the cloud as the terminology, but now there's more understanding, but you still have to get them to understand, and have confidence in what's being delivered. There's still issues about, is it secure, and I sort of think that you've got, Amazon and Microsoft with Azure. Their business depends on being secure, right? They're hiring the experts. They need the experts more than you do, really, to keep, because their business is based on it. So, but you have to sort of get into that mindset too, and teach people that, it is secure on the cloud. They can have security. They can meet your security requirements. But also in our world, we think on premises is still very important. So you have to kind of have that balance. If you think you can protect the data more effectively, run it on, your premises, and we can work with it in either place. So,
I've read a lot of articles that said that the role of marketing has changed because it's not a once and done sale. It's the marketing has to progress throughout the entire life cycle.
Right.
You're always needing to remind people why they bought it, and the value of continuing their subscriptions and all that.
Right, because replacement is easier than it used to be. Yeah. You buy $1 million worth of software and you're using it. You're like, I spent my $1 million. I got to make sure this works. You sign up for a subscription. 6 months later, it's not working out. It's like, I'll try something else. So
that must change, the whole approach and strategy around marketing when you have to continuously market.
Right. So we had to continue to help them understand the value we're delivering, but we also have to support them. So everything about support, online documentation, online tools for customer care, kind of the ability to get them the answers they need right away. And people were becoming a self-service economy, right? So people are much more used to finding these things on their own. So you've got to have all that and think about their journey from buying through to being a customer and using, and keeping them supported, educated about what you're doing, understanding the value you're delivering all along the way.
Man, that seems to almost dramatically increase the role of marketing, right? So now experience is involved in that, customer success and onboarding, everything impacts how useful and how effective marketing is, isn't it?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, marketing is, I would say marketing's always touched all aspects, right? But here in the digital age, where everything is compressed, there's much more pressure, much more cycle. You're spinning the changes much more rapidly. So you've got to keep the content coming and changing and evolving. And it's one reason you see sort of lighter weight content, a lot more graphics, a lot more things to engage people. A picture's worth 1,000 words, all that. So we're seeing a lot more. And then thinking about going to mobile devices too. I mean, that's been a big change too. The fact that, particularly in some markets, kind of the developing markets where the PC was kind of skipped, mobile's everything. In the U.S. where, it's moving more and more towards mobile, mobile transactions are more than half, right? So you also have to think of, how do you present your content through any device somebody might use, and you want it to be consistent and get the message across, look right, and be accessible.
Rob, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, thank you. It's been great.
So far, the conference has been brilliant. I've learned so much, so thank you for that. Congratulations on the great conference.
All right.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in.